Magnificent ending, and thank you to our musicians today. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Bob Lynch, president of Americans for the Arts and the Americans for the Arts Action Fund. And thank you. I really need to be applauding these people up here and all of you, great leaders in the arts and in America. But I am here with Joe Lamont, the executive director of NAMM, the International Music Products Association, and together we want to welcome you here to this arts and arts education discussion with all of the Democrat leadership here in America. So thank you all for being here today. But I'd like to start by introducing someone who was able to drop by to welcome us to his town. He's a great arts supporter. In fact, I've seen him play the piano, and he's pretty good. Hey. I know that his Department of Cultural Affairs, one of our members, has organized a major cultural presentation called Dialogue City to take place this week, and he deserves great recognition for showcasing the arts in this great city, his great city. The mayor of Denver, John Hickenlooper. Yay.
Yay, yay. Yay, yay. You know, there is no clearer connection between two apparently disrelated things than a strong economy and a vibrant cultural scene, right? You have more, if you have more music and more art in your community, I can guarantee you that your economy will grow, that you will do better than you would if you didn't have those cultural recommendations. And I think we are a perfect example of that in this country. Now, I've got a couple minutes of remarks, I do want to mention that us mayors have this sacred kind of a collaboration together, because we know we try to present like it's really hard being mayor, but we know how easy and how much fun it is. But we always shout out. We have with us Manny Diaz, who is one of the great mayors in America from Miami. And we have Mike Merrifield here, who's with our state legislature. Mike, stand up. Another great supporter of the arts. And I have to, even though you're not supposed to point out all the panelists, but I am a music fan, and I try to get out to concerts when I can. And to have John Legend here in town and actually hearing him talk about ideas, very exciting. Now, there are a couple things I'm going to get out of the way and let these folks talk about the arts and their relationship to the world. You know, long before I ever thought of running for mayor, and the local people here know, I mean, I never ran for student council or class president. I never ran for dog catcher and kind of got goaded into running for mayor in 2003. But back when I was in the private sector running a bunch of restaurants and taverns, I got on board with the Colorado Business Committee for the Arts and really loved those years. I was chair for a couple years, and it was one of the most enlightening things. When I first opened what no longer is my restaurant, my old restaurant, which my partner bought me out of, the Wine Coop Brewing Company, we had this big old warehouse, and we found we didn't want to put murals up or have something that couldn't stick. We worked out agreements with the local art galleries to rotate the art. You know, actually, there was a piece in the Smithsonian that referred to me as perhaps the only bar owner in America with its own curator, which is, my mother still, for years thought that was as high as I'd ever get. Part of the CBCA, the Colorado Business Committee for the Arts, they worked with companies, and we had a technology company named Storage Technology that did one of the most remarkable surveys. And this was in 1998, 1999. The technology boom was going crazy. It was hard to hold on to your employees. And they had a beautiful art collection in their facilities. And they asked their employees, these creative class, guys coming up with new technology solutions, and they said, does this artwork help you feel more comfortable? Does this artwork make you less likely to leave the company? Does this artwork help you solve technical problems in your daily work? And the results were staggering. 50%, 52% said it helped, the artwork helped them solve technical problems, right? 60% said it made them feel more comfortable. 70% said it made it less likely that they would leave and go to another company. And yet people don't recognize these are hardcore economic material benefits from people investing in art. And we're close to it. We're going to have a little fun that we're working to get our local, encourage, we're not forcing anybody to do anything. There might be journalists here, to encourage our local businesses to buy our art, our local art. And the same thing is true with music, right? We know that you can see that the work of Richard Florida, the rise of the creative class, that those cities that have a diverse population and have a lively cultural scene, lots of coffee shops, lots of live music, somehow they seem to be doing better year after year over the long term economically than cities that are, shall we say, moribund. Maybe that's the wrong word. I shouldn't say. I'm going to get myself in trouble with some of the other cities. We've got Tom Cochran here as the head of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and he's going to critique whatever I say here in a little while. We here in Colorado have always, so many people have moved here not because of a promotion or not job opportunity, but for a quality of life decision, that we've always invested in the arts. And part of it's being so close to one of the great natural wonders of Colorado Rockies, but part of it is just the people that are here. And back in the mid-1980s, we passed the scientific and cultural facilities district tax, which was a region-wide tax, right? 8 counties, roughly the size of Connecticut, 1/10 of 1%, that now generates $40 million a year. That gets spread with our cultural institutions, from the Art Museum and the Museum of Nature and Science down to the smaller venues, performance venues out in the suburbs, over 300 different venues. But it creates a foundation that allows, A, all of our cultural institutions to go out and fundraise a little more aggressively. They've got a running start. But even more importantly, it allows us to measure, because they get the money based on their paid attendance. So it allows us to measure the true economic impact of our cultural community, so that we know that even though we've got a record 8 professional sports teams, we have more paid admissions to our cultural institutions than we do to our sports institutions, right?
That's true.
Now, for the convention, you throw a little convention like this. It's one thing to say how great your cultural environment is, and we are a little proud. We've got 2 brand new art museums. I'm sure if you're from out of town, you should make sure you see Daniel Liebeskin's the new Frederick Hamilton wing of the Denver Art Museum. It's incredible. And the L.A. Calkins Opera House and the Museum of Contemporary Art is rock star solid. I mean, it's just a remarkable thing. Do all that, but we also want to make sure that you do some of the cultural stuff that we put in place just for this convention, and that's the Dialogue City that Mr. Lynch referred to. And it is a bunch of installations. There are 10 different artists. You can go to dialoguecity.com. Is it .org or .com? I always make that mistake. dialoguecity.org. They had me, a guy named Daniel Peltz, a wonderful artist from Providence, Rhode Island, had a thing called Karaoke Convention 08. Where, karaoke is, but instead of music with karaoke, it was political speeches. So it's a bar full of people, and then this big prompter up so the audience can see it as well, tells them when to scream and hiss and boo. And you can do the victory speech of Mike Huckabee in Iowa. I did the victory speech of Barack Obama in South Carolina. And it's great, because it gets people connected. It gets back to that meaning of what is democracy mean to you in a very provocative way. Tonight we have, which one is it tonight? Oh, it's 16th and Welton at 5 o'clock. We have Sharon Hayes' piece. It's going to be a one-time installation performance called Revolutionary Love. So those of you who can make it, do not miss it. It will be fully provocative. We continue to try and find different opportunities. We now have a revolving loan fund in Denver for creative enterprises. We want to try and make this city the warmest and most welcoming place for creative people. Because, Richard Florida's argument was right. It's not that the artists are going to drive all the corporations in America, but so often the kids that are going to drive the future economy, the ones who are going to write code for the internet, they're going to create software, they were kind of the geeks in high school, right? I know something about this. And I had thick Coke bottle glasses and all the acting and all the other things that defined geeks in those days. And those geeks grow up and suddenly they're driving the economy. They want to live in places that are welcoming to all people. They want to have a lot of diversity, and they want to have all the music and art that they grew to love when they were being kind of pushed away from the cheerleaders and the football players. So that's what our pitch is here. I think that's what these folks up here are going to talk about a little. I'll get out of their way. Thank you all for coming for Denver. We're having a great convention, and you know, while you're here, we did have a couple slow years, so if you were to spend a little more money, generate some sales tax, we'd be very grateful. All right.
I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for this great city. Let me begin by welcoming all of you to our event here at Museo de las Americas, and we're really pleased to be able to hold our event in a cultural institution, and one that captures the spirit of what the arts can do in sharing ideas among different cultures. And you can see here in the neighborhood what the arts have done and the galleries in creating the kind of revitalization that the mayor was talking about. We have a panel of distinguished leaders here, and Joe Lamond is going to say a word about each of them. But what I wanted to do was just mention that we have so many leaders, congresspeople, mayors, lieutenant governors who have come here that I can't possibly say a word or introduce them all, but there's one person I do want to say a word about. The great Congressman Norm Dix and his wife Susie are here, chairman of the House Interior Appropriations Committee. Norm, would you stand, please? He won't like me to say it, but every arts organization in America owes a debt of gratitude for the appropriations that come out of the National Endowment for the Arts because of his committee. I'm struck as I go through the convention here by how much the arts permeate the Democratic National Convention. The opening was John Legend, and you saw it on TV. You saw the full-page photo of John in the Hill magazine today. Actors, dancers, singers, musicians, filmmakers, video makers, design, architecture, it's all part of what we're doing here in every single venue. I can see how important the arts are, and of course the arts education that created those artists, to the folks here at the National Democratic Convention. Today, we want to explore how important the arts and arts education is to America itself. 600,000 arts organizations, 100,000 of them nonprofit, 500,000 for-profit, 6 million jobs, $166 million of economic impact just from the nonprofit piece. It's huge. The Americans for the Arts Action Fund is really pleased to join with NAM on this, and also in doing a national ad campaign to get that message out on television, on radio, in newspapers across the country. Now, getting ready for today, we started a campaign early in the primaries in New Hampshire to ask every single candidate for president, Republican and Democrat, what their arts education and what their arts policy was. We published 10-point pro-policy arts brief, which you can pick up on the way out if you'd like to see that. 5 of the campaigns came to a forum that we held in New Hampshire. We are producing a Congressional Arts Report Card that you can also pick up on the way out that gives a grade for every congressperson's vote on the arts in the 110th Congress. Today, the National Platform Committee is looking at a platform for the Democratic Party that for the first time in advance has an arts piece. We're excited about that. Finally, artist John Baldessari, a great American artist, has prepared a poster about this event that you can get on the way out. So arts, visual, performing, every single piece of it here that we hope will commemorate this event and raise awareness about the value of arts and arts education. I'd like to ask the person who's partnered with me and Americans for the Arts Action Fund on this, CEO of NAM, Joe Lamond, to come up. We even have a new button commemorating our Arts Ask for More campaign that you can pick up on the way out as well. So ladies and gentlemen, to introduce our panelists, Joe Lamond.
Thank you again all for being here. It's an extremely busy week, but to see the support for the arts is unbelievable. NAM represents the manufacturers and retailers of music products around the world. Multinational companies, Yamaha, Fender, all the way to many of our NAM members are here from the local area. Best description I've heard of NAMM, we produce a trade show each year. About 88,000 of the global industry comes together, and I had a banking friend of mine overlook this sea of people at the NAMM show, and his only comment was he's never seen so much bad credit in his life. So that sums up our industry. It's a beautiful industry, but we're in the background and producing the tools that these great artists use to make music and art that we hear every day. I've got a great pleasure to introduce this panel today. It's an amazing group we put together. I'll start with former Secretary of Education and former Governor of South Carolina, Richard Riley, and he'll be the moderator today. His distinguished career is based on a commitment to quality education for our nation's children. During his time in public office and through his efforts today, Secretary Riley helped launch historic initiatives to raise students' academic standards, improve instruction for poor and disadvantaged children, increase parental involvement in school, expand loans to help more Americans attend college, and be ready for the 21st century workforce. Secretary Riley, thank you for your service and leadership and for being with us here today. Secretary Riley. Since winning his first public office as mayor in 2001 and his re-election in 2005, Manny Diaz has led Miami toward a renaissance of prosperity and opportunity. Mayor Diaz is recognized as one of America's most innovative mayors and now leads the United States Conference of Mayors as its president. Mayor Diaz established the Mayor's Office of Film and Cultural Affairs to implement a comprehensive, inclusive, and proactive cultural agenda for the city of Miami. Mayor Diaz's commitment and leadership demonstrates that the arts are integral to community life and to development. Mayor Diaz, we appreciate your participation today. Sheila C. Johnson co-founded Black Entertainment Television, BET, and is the CEO of Salamander Hospitality and the president, managing partner, and governor of the Washington Mystics WNBA team. She is an entrepreneur and an accomplished violinist whose philanthropy concerns are devoted to making sure that children and young adults have the opportunity to express their creativity through the arts. She serves on numerous national boards, including that of the Americans for the Arts, and has established the Sheila C. Johnson Performing Arts Center at the Hill School in Middleburg, Virginia. She's a member of the Obama National Arts Policy Committee as well. Sheila, thanks for your many contributions to the years and for being here today. Veteran of many NAMM shows, John Legend is a 5-time Grammy Award winner R&B singer, songwriter, and pianist. He's the founder of the Show Me campaign, which is a grassroots movement to fight worldwide economic and spiritual poverty by fostering sustainable development. As a member of the Americans for the Arts Artists Committee, he joins us today to speak about his own influences and inspirations that have led to his successful music career. John Legend, thank you for the gift of your music and for being here with us today. John Legend. Louise Mcintosh Slaughter, right? Did I get that right? Was born in Lynch, Kentucky, a true life coal miner's daughter, and one who can probably sing that song as well as anyone. Elected to the House of Representatives in 1986, she is without question the only member of the New York delegation with a distinct Harlan County, Kentucky accent. Is that true? Okay. Today, she serves as chair of the powerful Committee on Rules in the House. This means that just about every piece of significant legislation moving through Congress has the imprint of her committee and indeed of Congressman Slaughter herself. That makes her one of the most influential members of Congress, but what really makes her special to us and all those who advocate for music education is her long-standing role as the Democratic chair of the Congressional Arts Caucus. In that position, she stands up for the arts and is one of our most powerful voices in the Congress and in the nation. We are proud to call her our friend and supporter. Welcome, Congresswoman Slaughter. And now we turn it over to you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Joe, and I'm really honored to be with this distinguished group of panelists to discuss really our responsibility as a nation and as a state and as people to provide real continuous investment in the arts and access to arts education. I apologize, the mayor and I, with our ties on, we aren't near as cool as John. We'll try to loosen up a little bit. This convention that most of us are involved in right now, with the nomination of Barack Obama as our candidate for president, really is historic in a lot of ways. In the context of this call for change, a call for hope, and a call for possibility. The discussion on investing in the arts then is timely, and it's also critical at this very moment. I'll tell you, it's the right discussion, and this is the right time to have it. Our panelists will offer their experiences and their vision regarding the importance of investments in the arts. Generally, the ideas are focused on the following: the creation of federal, state, and local policies for the arts, and that's so important, those of us that deal in policy. The critical need to provide our students with access to arts education so that we educate the total child. The positive economic impact of the arts on our communities, and we'll have some very good discussions on that, and we've already had Mayor Hickenlooper that gave us such a good idea of what's happening here in Denver. The format for the afternoon's discussion is a simple one. I will pose questions of each of the panelists who will respond to all of us, and throughout the discussion, the panelists are invited to respond to responses to your fellow panelists, and I hope we can have a lively discussion. We plan to conclude at 4 p.m., so I ask you all to keep that in mind. The panelists also will be available in the reception afterwards, so if any of you have any particular questions for any of us, just let us know. Now, as I ask Mayor Manny Diaz, the solid record that you have in community arts development as mayor of Miami. We all know about that, and Joe referred to it. But Mayor, I would ask you, what positive impact has that policy had on the economic and the cultural growth of your great city?
Well, first of all, I think the mayor left, but I wanted to, every chance I get, thank the mayor and all of you for hosting us here in Denver. I know that a few that I spoke to before we started had indicated that you had been in Miami some time ago with a group that came to visit us in Miami. So it's great to be here in your city. I love Denver, and I certainly love your mayor. So you can tell him I said that. I also want to thank Americans for the Arts, who's been an outstanding partner of ours at the United States Conference of Mayors for many years and will continue to be so. I want to thank the members of Congress who are here for their support for the arts. And I'll say one last thing is that before I came out here, I told my wife and daughter about the possibility of their coming and joining me, and they said, no, we don't want to go to a convention, too many people, meetings, all this running around. We don't want to go. Then they learned that I was going to be in a panel with John Legend. And I'm persona non grata at home now, so there you have it. But there are two aspects to this that I feel very, very passionate about. First of all, it's the cultural aspect. A city that doesn't promote art, a civilization, but we're talking about cities that doesn't promote art, lacks identity. Because art is the universal language, it is a global language, it is how we make our connection with the past, what we leave for the future. And in a city like Miami, it is so essential. Because you're talking about a city where 60% of us were born in another country. And what is one issue, what is one aspect that connects us all? It's our appreciation for the arts and the differences that we have, that we express through the arts. So I would submit to you that the arts in Miami have really served to bring such a diverse community together in a way that I don't think anything else could have. The economic impact obviously is substantial. Bob and the mayor both, I think, cited numbers in Miami. Clearly tens of thousands of jobs, millions of dollars that go into the local economy, and it has a significant impact. Interesting in Miami that I will tell you that I think when they were making the introduction, they were talking about the renaissance of Miami. There is no single more contributing factor, in my opinion, that has occurred in that renaissance over the last 7 years than the development of our city in the area of the arts. we always had it all. We had the water, we had the palm trees, we have hurricanes at this time of the year, and all those other things. But we really did not have a strong and powerful arts community. And there's no more dramatic change. And we've had, many of you know, in December we host Art Basel, which is the largest art fair in the world. And I certainly invite all of you to join us in December. The weather is very nice in December in Miami. But it has really put Miami on the map. And as a result of that, the interesting thing that's happened, and when you talk about investments, and when you talk about investments at a time like this, where we're having economic issues and struggles, the people of Miami, just a few years ago, we voted to tax ourselves on a over $600 million bond issue. We have, in the last 5-6 years, built a $500 million performing arts center. We're in the process now of moving our Museum of Art and Museum of Science to a new site on the water, on the bay, which will collectively end up costing somewhere around $500 million as well. So what you've had is that you've had the people of Miami that have recognized the importance of the arts from the cultural perspective, but also from an economic perspective, and what it's been able to do to change the image of the city, to have it grow economically and have a whole new reputation in the world as a city, and have been willing to tax themselves and have been willing to put money into it. And I would just close, and I was having this conversation with the director of El Museo before we started. How does that happen? It has to happen, in my opinion, based on having lived in Miami all of my life. When the elected officials, when the political community join forces with the business and the art community. The business and the arts community are always there. It's those nasty politicians that you have to convince somehow how important arts is for them and for their city and for the future of their city. Once you make that connection, the mayors with the bully pulpit, as always, once you make that connection, I think it's unstoppable. And we've seen a lot of that growth in Miami, and I think we're going to continue to see it because everybody, every day, continues to see how important the arts have become in Miami.
Yeah. Well, Mayor, of course, mayors can be very influential in the arts, needless to say. And as president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, I wonder if you'd speak to that as a priority. You've always had it as a priority in your city. How are you going to handle that as president of the conference?
It's always been a priority at the conference. We have one of our standing committees, which is Arts, which I was proud to chair for a couple or 3 years. And as a matter of fact, this year, and I'm glad to see when you mentioned about your forums, and because this is so essential for all of us to come together. What I was just talking about at a local level, to make this a national effort, for all of us to come together and talk to our candidates and have them strongly adopt the arts into their platform. This year, last year we developed something called the 10-point plan, which has the 10 areas that we consider of most importance for America. Arts, obviously, arts and tourism are an integral part of that. This year, as I began my presidency, we called a March for America, where we're having 5 forums around the country on 5 critical areas. One of them is the arts and tourism, and I invite you all down to South Florida, where we're going to have our meeting at the beginning of October. So, and those forums are designed to develop an agenda in those 5 critical areas that we've determined to be critical areas, to submit to the candidates and to submit really to the President of the United States, the next President of the United States, to make it part of their first 100-day agenda. So it is a top priority for us in the Conference of Mayors.
And I hope that president will be receptive.
We do too.
And I know one that certainly will be.
Yes, I am.
Next, let me go to philanthropist Sheila Johnson. Sheila, it's great to be with you. Before your active role as a supporter of the arts, you're well known for that, you were a music teacher. Tell me in this group, how did music and the arts contribute to your personal growth? And how did music contribute to the complete education of your students?
Well, first of all, I came by the arts naturally. My father was a neurosurgeon, and when I came out of the womb of my mother, I heard music in the house. You know, some people come back from work and they pour a drink, you know, to relieve their tension. My father sat down and played the piano, and he was a very accomplished pianist. So I grew up with music in the household, and at the age of 5 had to start playing the piano, which was recommended very strongly. But I always wanted to be a violinist, and I couldn't do it until the age of 9. And the deal was that I had to continue to play the piano. I cannot play the piano like you. I just want you to know that. But to make a long story short, I continued my music education throughout high school, went on to the University of Illinois School of Music, where I studied with Paul Roland, was part of the Budapest String Quartet. But from there was also part of the Illinois String Research Project. But during those years, it really built a foundation for me personally. It taught me how to focus. It taught me how to be organized. It also taught me how to build a business. And I think one thing that we have got to watch out in this whole business of the arts and arts education and the arts in general, do not separate it out from your everyday life. It's part of your life. It really is. And I think that too often, and if there's anything that I'm trying to tell the Obama people, the arts are so key, especially with young students, and this is where I'm going to get on the students, as far as their learning. It is not talked about, but at the age of 3, if you find children that cannot repeat simple rhythmic patterns back, if they speak in a monotone voice, they have reading problems. You don't realize this, but you can actually figure out children's learning disabilities at a very young age through the arts. So by that, that doesn't mean give up on them, but use the arts, bring it back into the classroom, work with the children. Because you can go in the back door where they can come out the front, being much stronger. There are studies out there, and it can be done. Because music, if you listen to a child read, or any of us read, it's all rhythmical. It's music. All right? To get a child to do math, they have to be able to focus. You can do anything by just even clapping. How many did you hear? 3. All right. You can do it rhythmically. How many did you hear again? That's 5. You're getting that child to focus, and you're getting them to focus in a really fun way. So we have to understand, don't separate the arts out from anything. And everything that you're doing daily, the arts are built in. Whether they're walking across the room, it's part of dance. Whether they're talking to you, it's part of us singing. Please, this is the one thing that, if there's anything that I can say, that's what really transformed me personally. I was so involved in the arts and so involved with music, and as I went into other fields, especially in starting a cable network, the arts continued to be a part of my life. I was creative in being able to put shows together. Teen Summit was one of my shows, and within Teen Summit, I was able to build the music capacity. Even to this day, in the hospitality business and even running a sports team, music is involved. And we don't think about it that way. And if you watch the Olympics, it was all arts. It was the combination of arts and technology in its purest form. When I put a game on, day by day, week by week, I meet with my entertainment group. I said, okay, what music is going on? What does halftime look like? What music are you relating to each player? And this is what creates the big picture. So it's all art. Everything that goes on the LCD screens, it's all art. Putting together a documentary on my players. I just got through producing a documentary, and that's all part of my life. I never separate the art out of anything that I do. Did I answer your question?
You answered it great, but tell me this. If you give us a brief overview of the role, as you see it, of the arts as a positive influence on the economic health of communities. We've heard some about communities.
I got a good one, and I don't think people know this, and I don't know whether you know this, Mr. Mayor, but I am from Chicago, even though I live in, and I just jotted this down, Virginia. Did you know the problem of Lake Michigan way back when? Okay, that was the biggest water source that people could get their drinking water from. But what was happening is the raw sewage, everything was going into Lake Michigan, which was making the water undrinkable. So the city was like scratching its head, what are we going to do? Because the water was flowing in one direction. So they went and hired the Army Corps of Engineers. Now, I'm assuming, and I hope that they had a strong arts background, because they did all these drawings and they figured it out, well, let's get the water to flow in another direction. So they then put together a new system. They actually built it so the water is flowing back in the other direction. So now they have drinkable water out of Lake Michigan. So that's one source. Now, I'll keep staying on Chicago. Now, I have to tell you, I did go to the Arts Basel. I loved it. Yeah, you're doing you're a good thing. And the other thing is your city is a work of art. It's not just even the new pieces, even the old buildings, all of it is a work of art. But in Chicago, Mayor Daley has really taken it upon himself to commission some of the finest artists. He has really put that city on the map because he really wants the Olympics there in 2016, and I don't blame him, you know. But this is a case where you have art meets the global world. And I grew up in the city of Chicago, played with the Chicago Youth Symphony, spent a lot of time in downtown Chicago, and I go back to Chicago a lot. And it really, really warms my heart to see that city turn into what it is now. I think it's the art mecca of the nation. And just to see the throngs of tourists that go through there, it is just mind-boggling. And because of that, their economy has not only doubled, but has tripled. And they come there for the artwork. Yes, they have the finest theaters, and I think one of the finest symphony orchestras, but they come there to see the art. So that's...
They have those decorative cows out on the street.
They've got everything.
They've got everything. Well, I thank you very much to musician John Legend. John, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for setting the tone last night for our convention. I thought that was great. The study of music, the study of music has led you to, needless to say, a highly successful career. From your own personal experience, how do you see your music education as an essential goal in helping students succeed in school and in life?
Well, I've been a musician since I was a child, and like Sheila, I came out of the womb to music. My father and my mother are both musicians. Neither of them are professional, but it was such a huge part of our lives. My mother was the choir director at my church. My grandmother was the organist. My father played the drums. And me and my brothers and my sister all sang and played at some point in our lives. And I had cousins and uncles. Everybody performed in some way or another. And I couldn't imagine life without music. And I know that when I was homeschooled for a while, and when I went back to public school, I was a little bit younger than everybody else. I was a little bit shy. I was skipped ahead a couple grades, so I was pretty smart. You know, I did well in school and all that, but I was very shy and hesitant to kind of interact with everybody else. And I think the main bridge for me to developing confidence, to developing my social skills, was me becoming active in the performing community at school. And I know that if there wasn't the show choir or the theater and the other musical outlets for me, I wouldn't have been involved in school and involved with other students at school in the way that I was. And so I feel like music education and arts education was a way of connecting me to my larger community, developing confidence in me. My father was a single parent most of my teenage years, and so he wasn't able to take care of us all the time while he was at work, and we had to kind of take care of ourselves in a lot of ways. And music was what I did after school. Theater was what I did after school to you know, keep me busy, keep me out of trouble, keep my mind active, and keep me involved with what was going on around my community. And I can't imagine having that taken away, and I can't imagine the plight of a kid who grows up in a community where there's no funding for that. I feel like that's a shame, and it should never happen to any child in America where we have the resources that we have. And so I'm here out of a passion out of a personal understanding of what music and arts education do for the communities all around the country and all around the world. And that's what I believe in, and that's why I'm here today.
I think you've responded. I was going to ask you as an adult what motivated you to become really an advocate for the arts. You might say another word about that. I think you spoke to it generally.
Well, I believe, first of all, that government, we always have pressing concerns, you know, the day-to-day nuts and bolts things of filling the potholes and you know, running the cities and the states and the country. But we always have to think about the future and invest in the future. And sometimes we lose sight of that, particularly I think in a recession where times are tight and people are struggling. I think we always have to keep a mind focused on the future, investing in education, investing in our students, and I think investing in the whole student, not just in math and science, but investing in the arts is a part of investing in the future. We can't lose sight of that, and I think this election, in large part to me, is about whether or not we want to be about the future or not. And that's why I support Senator Obama for president.
That's okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna get political a little bit here. Is that all right? Yeah. We're at the DNC anyway. And like I said, I think this is a future election. We have to think about the future. And when we press Senator Obama's campaign and all of our politicians, we have to tell them that this is about the future. And I think there's not much better investment we can make than in our young people's future. And the arts are, I think, a critical part of that.
Well, that's good. Now, Congresswoman Louise Slaughter, my great friend, you've been a strong proponent of the arts, and for years you served as a co-chair of the Congressional Art Caucus. In your judgment, what's the role or responsibility of the federal government in promoting the development of the arts and the preservation of cultural traditions that are related to the arts?
Well, I'm so happy to be here first. If I could just say that Denver is so beautiful and how much I've enjoyed your public art. It's wonderful, it's whimsical, it's serious, it's beautiful, and I absolutely love that. I wish all mayors were as good as these and really had understood the importance. The federal government does have a role to play, and my partner, Norm Dix, and I, neither of us could get along without the other, a symbiotic relationship, and you may not know it. Butler Derrick knows it back there, former member of the Rules Committee. But about 15 years ago, we nearly lost the arts funding. About 1980, I think, wasn't it? Or maybe somewhere around there. 1980, I think, was when Reagan zeroed it out. And then the Arts Caucus was started. They cut the budget 40%. We were all captured by the great imagination of the Reverend Waldman of Tupelo, Mississippi, who had decided that all public art, or the art that we funded, was decadent and dangerous. Norm and I saved it from that. And let me tell you, there weren't a lot of people, I'm serious. There weren't a lot of folks that envied us, if you remember, that we stood up for it year after year after year. I will tell you that people were elected to Congress simply to kill the National Endowment for the Arts. But so many people had gone before us. We all had benefited from art that we'd been exposed to. We knew the statistics on what art did and how it humanized us and made us better. And we were determined to keep it going. We put quite a bit back. We're still not back to where we were that long time ago, but we're working on it, and we will be asking for even more. And again, we believe that President Obama is going to understand that. Now, Secretary, you and I have been such good friends on this. You came to Rochester, if you recall. We were very interested in trying to save a whole group of young people who really were school dropouts. They had no future, they didn't care. And I had one young man in particular that I recall who had won the arts competition to let his painting hang in the tunnel of the Capitol. But when we got ready to tell him about it, we couldn't find him. He'd left home, nobody knew where he was. We saw no future for him. It was terrible, but my staff wouldn't let it go. And they hunted and hunted and hunted him up. We got the money together. We took him to Washington. hung that in the Capitol, talked to him. When my staff picked him up, they picked him up sitting on the curb, homeless boy. The next time I saw him was when we were at the public television station in Rochester, and he was a student at Pratt Whitney, at the Pratt Institute. Can you imagine that? That simply hanging his art in the capital of the United States gave him the confidence that there was something that he could really do. And it was and we know about that, but we have no idea how many children we've saved. But I'm going last here, so if you'll give me just a little leeway, I want to tell you some things I do know. While we were going through these dark days, one of the nicest things that happened to us was that the Conference of Mayors had decided then they were beginning to recognize the economic benefit. Mark Morial, I think, was ahead at that time and came to Washington, and we talked with him, the Association of Counties. The Governors Association got together, and we always had the great Americans for the Arts and NAM out there on the outside pushing for us. But if you recall, there was a time when we had Westinghouse, CBS, and Bravo all pushing art in schools. Westinghouse said, we want people to work for us who are innovative, who think, who are creative, who know how to do things, and we want to turn them loose for great ideas. And nothing does that better than art. So if I just, one or two other things here that I'm so fascinated with, and I've told these everywhere I go, you've probably heard them. But the fact is, studies show, and I can support these by facts. I think most of this study was done at USC Davis. But the doctors, and I hope there's some in the crowd, who really understand what they hear in a stethoscope are doctors who studied music. There is a direct correlation between keyboard and math. The half notes, the eighth notes, the fourth quarter rest, so forth. And modern dance does great things for computers. It's all proven facts. But more than that, if with a little bit of money that we put in Washington, it can yield $166 billion in 8 million jobs in the United States and 12 billion more back to the federal treasury. And you can believe Norm and me, we don't make any other investment that brings us back that kind of return in Washington. What we get back is so enormous. And it is a sin to me that we don't do everything we can to expose every child from birth on. You know, we've heard 2 birth stories here, to music and to art, because we are losing a lot of that great capital of imagination and growth and opening both sides of the brain and learning things. So other than making sure the next time you go to the doctor, ask them if they ever learned to play piano. I did start a little study on my own once, and I was going to ask famous people if I were able to come across a few, if they had studied in school on music, and I didn't get further than President Clinton. But he told me this great story about 9th grade, and his teacher remembered everything about it, and that's how he learned saxophone. But I will tell you, you look at a brilliant person, a person who's creative, and you're going to find somebody who's going to be singing in the shower, somebody who's playing a little piano, whose radio is always on in the car, some great music, knows what's going on, appreciates it. And I will tell you right now that I believe with all my heart that children that create will not destroy. We have to do something about that. It is a great obligation, and I think most people up here would agree with me that we probably couldn't have held a meeting like this 10, 15 years ago. So we're coming a long way, and people are waking up and understanding how not just the economic benefits, they're incredibly wonderful, but it's the human benefits that really matter. It's the ability that we give people, not just children. And you know, artists, in a way, the one thing I regret about saving the NEA the way we did was that we had to do things that I did not like. One was that we could no longer give individual grants because that, for some reason, that was deemed unholy. And we made some things that we should never have done. Art should be free. Art should be unfettered. An artist is the person who can tell us who we were, who we are now, and give us some hope of who we may want to be. They should have the absolute freedom to create that art to the benefit of us all. Next question.
I do have another question, but Sheila, I think, has a response.
No, I was just going to relate a story that happened to me while I was teaching music. I was at, for many years, for 18 years, I had a children's orchestra of my own and did a lot of conducting. And a colleague of mine who was a piano teacher actually had a student who had been hit by a car on Connecticut Avenue in Washington, was airlifted out. And my students and myself, we were invited to Children's Hospital, and Itzhak Perlman was there, and we were performing. Anyway, this young girl, her name was Claudia, was wheeled down. She had had 7 brain operations. She was wheeled down in the atrium of Children's Hospital by mistake, but a lot of my students did know her. And they were traumatized by what they saw when they saw Claudia, and they were very upset. But she was there, and we were there giving the concert, and she was all slumped over in her wheelchair, and there had been absolutely no response from her. So we started, my little student started playing a song that she apparently had been working on at the time of her accident. It was long, long ago. So we were playing and everything, and suddenly Claudia's head lifted up and her eyes started to flicker. And there was a lot of commotion in the audience, and the doctors ran over. They said, "Can you just keep playing the song, just keep playing it?" So we did, and her head lifted up and her eyes open, and you could see her little fingers were starting to move. And what had happened, her brain had awakened by the other side of her brain that had not been as damaged, but it had awakened and had pulled from its memory bank what she was working on at that time, and it was the music that has saved Claudia's life, and to this day she's now a very well-functioning adult. So this is the power of what the arts can do. So if you can imagine it could do to someone who's really had severe trauma by an accident, you can imagine what it can do for all children. And the thing, you know, I go on the education side because I'm an educator. You have really got to seriously look at how the arts really impacts children in the classroom. If it's a history class, take them a step further, show them paintings, play the music of that era, whether it's French impressionistic paintings or the music of Debussy or Ravel. Give them a well-rounded picture, not just about reading the chapter in the history book and say, okay, go home, memorize, you're going to be tested on it Friday. Make it exciting, make it come to life. And that's where the arts play a key role. And that's what is so important.
That's a great story. Let me ask you to say another word about the Arts Council, the caucus, which is so important, and you co-chair. And I know you deal with authorizers and also appropriators. If you would give us a word about how you work through the caucus to stimulate both of those levels.
Well, I think we've made a lot of difference, and when we were able to point out economic benefits. That's a very large part of it. I'm sure, Mr. Mayor, you know that's one way you can not only sell it to your city, but when you see the results. And there are numbers of cities. I'm going to add Miami and Denver to my list, but starting with Providence, Rhode Island, which took 3 square miles in the middle of the city, made it an artist area, gave low rent facilities to both create and to live, to artists, and people flocked there. And I will tell you that someone mentioned a while ago, I think Mayor Higginlooper, that more tickets are sold for art than often for sports events. The Metropolitan Museum found that once in New York just about 10 years ago, when I think that was the only time they'd ever done the study. But they brought in more money at the Met than the Mets, the Yankees, the Knicks, a whole lot. Who else? Who am I left out, John?
The Jets and the Giants.
Jets and the Giants, okay. Now, I never think about the Giants since they moved to New Jersey. But anyway, more money than went into the Metropolitan Museum than all of the others combined. That alone should make anybody trying to balance a budget somewhere know that that's a darn good way to do it.
That's great. I think we're just about out of time, but does anybody have anything that Mayor wants to make a comment? Please go ahead.
First of all, make no mistake about it. There is no more effective way to revitalize a neighborhood than through the arts.
Exactly.
I don't care what anybody, I mean, there's no magic formula.
Exactly.
Mayors are on the ground. We understand. You get arts, you get institutions like this in a neighborhood, you begin to see that neighborhood turn around. The other thing I wanted to say to you is that we lost a lot of investments in 1980, not just in the arts, unfortunately.
Yes, we did. A memorable time.
One last thing on your stats, just to put this in perspective and how important this investment in the future and in children is. Stats tell us today that 60% of our children in public education can't read and can't perform math at grade level. And half of our kids are not graduating from high school. So that's a real problem.
And art helps there.
And art helps there. Exactly. And I have one last thing, I have one last challenge. There's a position that we've taken in the United States Conference of Mayors, which to me I think is essential if we as a country are going to make a real statement that we care about culture and that we care about the arts. And I don't know if the Americans for the Arts has taken it. Certainly the Travel and Tourism Roundtable with Jonathan Tisch and his group also support. But somewhere in the vicinity of 2/3 to 80% of countries in this hemisphere and countries in Europe and probably Asia as well have national positions, be it a minister, a cabinet member, that deal with culture, arts and culture. It's a national priority. And since we have some members of Congress here and some people who can influence the policy of the next President of the United States, I think, from my perspective, it would be essential that this country make that statement and then everything else.
Let me thank you all. I would say this, that it's so important for all of us to understand as a people how we all work together, and you heard so many different levels and interesting ways that these leaders have talked about the arts and music. I think the first thing is we have to convince people to believe in what we've been talking about, and I think certainly everybody here does, but you really have to believe in the arts and music as a critical part of education, a critical part of a community, cultural development, all of the economic aspects, and certainly education. A little book I read one time, Care Enough to Lead, about education, written by a principal. So I would urge all of you, as we leave here and go into the convention and go into our respective states, care enough to lead. Believe in the arts, yes, but care enough to be a leader for investment in the arts, for support of access to arts education for all children. And let's give this panel a great hand. They did a great job. Good job. Thank you. You didn't fall off the stage.
A couple of quick things I just want to say. When Joe and I asked our staff at Americans for the Arts and the staff at NAM to put together a panel for the Democratic Convention, and we came up with a list of names, 5 great names. We thought a couple of them would be great. They came back and got all 5 of them. I couldn't believe it. The dream panel, please, ladies and gentlemen. A quick thing that I just want to point out, I think we've heard here that the arts are a secret weapon for America. It's not just about the ideas and the beauty, which everybody talked about here, but I heard economy, jobs, community change, creativity and education, better grades in all classes, healthcare, crime, all kinds of things that the arts can help with. And so from NAM and from the Americans for the Arts Action Fund, I think our message to everybody who you get a chance to talk to out there is the arts ask for more. I think that that's what we're hearing here, and all of us can be advocates for that. And to close us out, and actually before I ask her to come up and say a word, I want to mention 2 people who are here with us. The Lieutenant Governor of Wisconsin, Barbara Lawton, who chairs the National Lieutenant Governors Association and is the recipient this year at the state level of our National Leadership Award, is here, and I wanted to say thank you for you being here. And I would be remiss if I didn't once again, he's been mentioned 3 times already, mention somebody who has been our great partner for so many years. I'm wearing a button here that is a button for the 10 points of the United States Conference of Mayors to the President that Mayor Diaz talked about. And right up here on the far left-hand corner, it says the arts. I love the fact that it says that. Tom Cochran, would you please stand up for a second? And then finally, with some final words and to lead us to the repast at the end of the room, I'd like to ask the chairperson of Americans for the Arts Action Fund, Ann Sheffer, to come up for a second.
Thank you. It's my job to tell you what you can do next, having heard this inspiring talk, and then give you a drink. As Bob mentioned, the message of Americans for the Arts is the arts ask for more, our public awareness campaign with NAMM. For years, I've said to myself, ask who, do what, how? So we formed the Arts Action Fund to answer that question for you. If you go to our website, www.artsactionfund.org, you will find the tools for advocating for the arts at all levels, not just the presidential campaigns. You've heard how important the congressional campaigns are, the state and local levels. All of this information is there. There's newsletters, there's the congressional report card. You'll get arts alerts. We have 100,000 people online who, when they hear that funding is in trouble, will send emails to these guys. So go to the website, please, and join us. This is a very exciting moment for the arts in America, and we need all of you to go out and spread the word where you live. So now, our last thing to do is to come to the reception, talk a bit, and just don't forget to pick up your John Baldessari poster, a work of art, and a hat to support music. And thank you all for coming, and thank you, Pam.
Thank you.